Thank you very much, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, and good morning to everybody. Your Excellency, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the Chancellor of Cavendish University, Uganda, our guest of honor, Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, the Minister for ICT and National Guidance, the Acting University Vice-Chancellor, Dr. Olive Sabiti, the Chairperson and members of the University Council, university faculty and staff, our class of 2024 graduates and your families, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and a privilege to join the Cavendish University today as it celebrates its 13th graduation. I congratulate you all on yet another milestone. To our dear graduates, you have all worked hard, some perhaps not quite as hard as others, but you each have earned your place here today, and for that we celebrate you. As you now embark on the journey from an academic environment to a global paradigm, this is a good time to take stock and rethink your lives going forward. The onset of your career, vocation, or calling is in many ways the dawn of your legacy. The choices you make shall inadvertently define or redefine you. To the rest of us, as we witness a brand new beginning for our young people, we too can seize the opportunity to rewrite our own stories. It is never too late to reboot and start again. It all starts with a simple question: what would I like my legacy to be about? The theme for this year's graduation is consolidating excellence, innovation, and transformation. This is about translating the knowledge acquired from the classroom to provide innovative solutions to the issues that bedevil our communities. It is about the duty upon each one of us to serve with a view to societal transformation. This call to service transcends generation, gender, standing, or place in life. That is precisely what President J.F. Kennedy meant when in his 1963 inaugural speech, he proposed, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Our own forefathers envisioned stable, decent communities for our countries and thus dedicated themselves to nation building. They served from a point of wisdom, honesty, circumspection, and propriety. Simply put, they did the right thing by their countries with scanty regard for cheap popularity. Standing on their shoulders as we do today, we too should be able to envision the world that they desired. The question then is, do we use this vantage point to build on their ideals and dreams, or are we unable to think beyond our opinions, our differences, our clusters, and our groupings? The civic space is in dire need of men and women that will purpose not to take from their countries, but to give back to them. Not to misdirect their gullible communities, but to conscientiously guide them. Not to rob or impoverish the people in whose name they serve, but to provide them with inspirational leadership. Not to be drawn to myopia, but to build upon our forefathers' probity. This is the essence of transformational service: selfless, functional, and effective. Many of us here today stand on the brave shoulders of modest giants that did serve their countries well. Public servants that were unwavering in their integrity, commitment, and pride. Their work ethos left so strong an impression that many years later, when my own professional journey started, I purposed to re-engineer myself towards a higher ideal of service. I joined the Ugandan Civil Service as a tribute to my father, a modest and honest man who served as a career civil servant his entire working life. It was my way of preserving his legacy and giving back to the system that raised me. I purpose to serve with as much integrity as I could muster, a tribute to the legacy of those great men and women that had walked with distinction before me. The choice I made those many years ago has seen me weather innumerable storms and rise up against odds to where I am today, the newest Justice of the Supreme Court of Uganda. That choice holds true today, both for the idealistic dreamers as well as the more cautious pragmatics. To you, the graduates, your respective countries are looking to you for transformational service and leadership. A culture of excellence is a good place to start. It is the bedrock of a positive growth trajectory for any nation. Excellence means different things to different people. To the student, it probably means superb academic grades. To the parent, it perhaps means raising a well-balanced child that is able to navigate life's issues. To the Olympian, on the other hand, it might make the difference between a gold medal and no medal at all. Joyce Meyer, a renowned Christian leader, simply defines excellence as doing ordinary things in an extraordinary way, going the extra mile to do more than average. In the same vein, General Colin Powell, an indisputable leader of his generation, proposes, and I quote, "If you are going to excel in big things, you develop the habit in little matters. Excellence is not an exception, it is a prevailing attitude." Close quotes. These two world leaders quite rightly allude to the power of humble beginnings, the importance of being faithful in small and mundane matters before one can aspire for grandeur and leadership, the tenacity to diligently learn the ropes of one's trade and strive for excellence. It underscores the notorious fact that ultimately the taste of the pudding is in the eating. You shall be known by your fruits, your impact in the marketplace. It all starts with proficiency. I urge you, do not settle. Remain as hungry for knowledge in the workspace as you were as a student. Opportunity only benefits those that are aptly positioned for it. Therefore, build your capacity, pursue postgraduate studies, undertake continuous professional training, look for good mentors and coaches, and remain open to learning. I hasten to add, however, that the proficiency must go hand in hand with a good personal brand. You must equip yourselves with the right skill set and values. Given the dynamic nature of societies, it is inevitable that the needs of the marketplace will continually change. You too must continuously adapt if you are to remain relevant. For instance, incredible as this may seem today, many years ago when we started out in the marketplace, there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no Google, or any of the research engines that we now are used to. The world was making the transition from typewriters to computers. Many of us started off typing with one finger and painstakingly scanning the keyboard for the right letters. We later graduated to 2 or 3 fingers and a rough idea where a few letters were on the keyboard. But here we are today. Many of us are delivering speeches on phones and laptops. That is the power of adaptation. Nonetheless, despite technological and other advancements, certain market needs remain unchanged. Great interpersonal skills, good communication skills, productivity, efficiency, and efficacy, and good old common sense. These are a sine qua non to your career journey. In addition, it is important to have a good conceptualization of the core mission of your workspace and the environmental context within which it operates, and purpose to serve in a manner that effectively addresses both those interests. Innovative public servants and entrepreneurs strive to translate efficiency and productivity into transformation and growth. As was quite candidly observed by no less than Steve Jones, innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. I shall give an example. Historically, projects in the extractives industry were designed to pass only two regulatory tests: the legal compliance test and environmental impact assessments. Today, however, they are also required to have a social license to operate. This license addresses the need for social acceptance of such projects by the communities living within the extractive site. It evolved against the backdrop of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which declaration conferred upon Indigenous people the right to withhold consent to a project that affects them and to negotiate the conditions under which that project would be designed and implemented. The social license to operate is thus an innovation that aptly serves those communities. They are able to influence the extractive activities without necessarily inhibiting a public project that is beneficial to an entire nation. The license does also lend credence to the vitality of keeping abreast with global sectoral developments. Those of us already in the marketplace ought to draw lessons from this. You have before you a brand new opportunity for introspection and self-evaluation, a time to inject renewed energy and creativity into our workspaces. I urge you to revisit your motivational foundations and realign them with a quest for innovation and excellence. I do also encourage you to benchmark thought leaders in your respective industries for greater efficiencies and relevance. To those of us here today that have distinguished themselves in service and leadership, we do applaud you. We are acutely reminded of Mahatma Gandhi's proposition that a nation's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest members. You might be out of office, perhaps older and less agile, but you do possess a reservoir of knowledge and the benefit of hindsight. These are all of immense value to our respective countries. It behoves the next generation of leaders, therefore, to disabuse itself of the notion of ageism and strategically embrace statecraft that taps as much into tested experience as it does new ideas and ideologies. As I close, it would be remiss of me to create the perception that all it takes to excel in the marketplace is a great personal philosophy, self-propelling capacity, and an effective work ethic. These values are critical to one's personal brand. However, we must remember two things. First, you will encounter failure and setbacks in your journey. That is a given. You should never let your failures and setbacks define you. Success belongs to those that are able to trudge on with grit and tenacity. Secondly, we each have a unique purpose in life that is distinct from that of our peers and associates. It is incumbent on each one of us to serve with originality. The world looks to you and I for our unique contribution. In my experience, one's personal life mission can be deduced from the following indicators. 1, your professional expertise or area of specialization. This provides obvious direction for your field of service. 2, your area of proficiency. The field of work that you effortlessly excel in is your personal niche. It often is an indication of where your purpose in life lies. And finally, an occupation that feels more like a calling than a job. Such an occupation inspires you to scale the heights insofar as you pursue a higher ideal than your paycheck, fame, or whatever other perks that come with a job. In the final event, public servants or marketplace leaders are at their most transformational when they walk into their destiny. They thus rise above the misnomer of palace politics and intrigue and focus on their individual race. The ongoing Olympics provide some food for thought. I watched the 100-meter final. All the competitors had run great times to qualify for the final. Indeed, many ran their personal best times in that final race. Thus, although only one of them was destined to win that final race, each competitor was a motivational force in their own right. So it is with the global marketplace. The glamour of another race should never diminish the shine of your own race. Our legacy flows from our individual race. We have a choice to make, to run an ordinary race or run with extraordinary purpose. I urge us all, ladies and gentlemen, to strive for a piece of posterity as the quintessential, transformational public servant. God bless you all. Asanteni sana.